Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you to another episode of TXK Conversations, part of our TXK State of Mind podcasting blog. Tonight, we're joined by one of the leaders and movers and shakers in our great community. Our guest this evening is a tenured associate professor of management, department chair for the general business, management, marketing, and supply chain management in the College of Business, Engineering, and Technology, and our own Texas A&M University-Texarkana. He's currently the president-elect for the Rotary Club. Without further ado, please welcome Dr. Brian Matthews to the stage. Dr. Matthews, welcome.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really grateful to be a part of this awesome podcast, and so it's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. It's an honor to have you with us this evening. I hope in our conversation will provide those who aren't familiar with you and your commitment to this community to have an opportunity to get to know you. And for those who are already familiar with you, I want to give them the opportunity to forge a deeper connection with you and your work, so they're aware of the valuable resource they're currently connected to. Before we begin, I wanted to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so again, thank you so much for the opportunity. Again, Dr. Brian Matthews. I actually grew up around the area. I actually grew up in a very small town outside of Ashdown, Arkansas called Wilton, Arkansas.
Yes, sir.
One that's watching now or will be watching later. If you're familiar with Ashdown, then of course you're might be very familiar with Wilton. So again, grew up in a small community, was raised by a single mom, who I seen work very tirelessly and diligently. She raised my brother, and I have a younger brother who's 2 years younger than I am. At Dumptar, worked rotating shifts. So I saw a strong work ethic coming from her, and that she emanated, quite consistently. We live right next door to my grandparents, and so my grandparents, were doting grandparents. They were very supportive grandparents. They made sure that my brother and I never went, without anything. So whenever we came home from school, we always had a cooked meal. Always had things to do. I always had a very memorable childhood. I even tell my mom, that to this day, and I'll be 45 in August. Remember, the very impressive, way that she raised us, that my grandparents raised us. So again, from Wilton, graduated high school in 1997. From Ashdown High School, went to Rotary University that same year in August. I enrolled in their undergraduate program, received my undergraduate degree in marketing in 2001. In July, went on to the graduate program in August, graduated from the graduate program at Harding in 2002, moved back here at the beginning of 2003, worked retail for a number of years, sold insurance for about a year. Worked in healthcare marketing for about 7.5 as a director of marketing at a hospice. I was a marketing liaison, and then from there went on to be a director of marketing at 2 long-term care institutions. Increased patient admissions and things of that nature. Had a great time doing that. While in the process of kind of matriculating through the healthcare industry, went back to school in 2010. Received my doctorate in 2012 from Argosy University. Started teaching at A&M Texarkana in 2016, and been loving what I do there. Love the energy, love the enthusiasm of the students. Love teaching, and so this will actually be my 8th year at A&M Texarkana.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And yeah, I'm familiar with Ashdown. That's where I was born. That's where most of my family's from. So, and I'm definitely familiar with Harding, having played you guys as a Ready. So, so I'm familiar. Yes, I'm familiar with Searcy, Arkansas, and a wonderful university. So, usually, when I have guests come on, I always have them fill out my guest bio because I want to get a feel for who that person is, be able to connect, and be able to highlight them in the best light possible. Because basically my conversation is about you and all the things that you're doing. So on our guest bio, when asked what main topics are you most excited to talk about, you listed 4 main things, and that was leadership psychology, organizational behavior, employee motivation, and management principles as the 4 key focal points you want to discuss and highlight this meeting. So my first question for you is, when you think about those 4 areas and the development of effective leaders, which kind of ties in with our title for this episode, what role does understanding the nuances of motivation contribute to the development and the maturation of an effective leader?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think anybody in a position of leadership, needs to understand, that topically and kind of ubiquitously, the leadership is about influence. Finding, idiosyncratic, unique, and authentic ways, to motivate people. I always tell
Hmm.
my that there are three P's, that they'll have to deal with as leaders, and that's people, and with people
Right.
come personalities. And you have those people that possess certain, unique and subjective personalities are going to be overseeing, and they're going to be innovating and implementing processes. So people, personalities, and processes. And so I think the complexity and the nuance of leadership is really knowing how to be agile and ambidextrous and finding ways to motivate different people, right? Because your
Right.
span of the leader is going to be very homogeneous. Where everyone is not going to be the same, right? So it would be great if ideally your followers were all brilliant, they were all collaborative, they were all entrepreneurial, they were all ambitious, they had great work ethic, they're very easy to work with, they were very extroverted. They had all of those ideal attributes and characteristics that any leader would want a follower to have. Unfortunately and practically, that's just not the world that we live in. And so we have to be able to, be able to detect and be able to navigate, through those kind of circuitous situations, where we identify different types of people and then we adapt our leadership style to accommodate, those differences.
Yeah, and I can attest to that. Just having been at the different levels I worked in, from the educational level to pretty much over my life, the federal level, having to be able to learn from different leaders so you can be able to apply those techniques to the people that you're leading. Because like everybody has a different learning style, they have a different way how you can reach them. So you have to be able to tap into them to be able to motivate them to be able to achieve the things that you want to achieve. So as I kept going through and kind of researching everything, um, I wanted you to describe what you meant when you stated that one of your missions in life is to create transformational spaces to connect people to knowledge and knowledge to situations.
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that I've learned, over the course of learning different, aspects of leadership and management and understanding psychology and sociology, management principles, leadership principles, is that, I love to teach, as I mentioned earlier, and I've also learned, personally and then professionally, those things that I'm great at doing, right? But then I
Right.
those things that I believe that I'm great at doing. Teaching is one of them. Leadership is another one. Being administrative and planning and being strategic is another. And so one of the things I've learned and that I've developed an affinity for is really being able to educate, those individuals, who have a thirst and have an appetite for learning. And I teach, in a way that helps kind of unearth, the complexities of, theories and concepts and paradigms, and then connecting those to, relatable, anecdotal, experiential occurrences, where
Mhm.
epiphanies, these areas of discovery, that may not have been addressed before. And so, to be able to connect, what I've learned, in terms of theories and concepts and paradigms and models, and make it more relatable, make it more interpretable, make it more understandable, so it's easily applicable. And so in management literature, there is a concept called the motivation to transfer learning. And so what
Okay.
is that I want to incite and that I want to trigger, I want to provoke, this insatiable appetite for learning, which actually makes the individual more open, for, that cognitive ground to be cultivated and for these
Mhm.
theories to be planted. So now once they get a full grasp and a comprehensive grasp of the knowledge, then they can actually connect that knowledge to different situational spaces. And so that's what I believe that I've been created to do, is be able to, interpersonally connect with people in a way where I can convey concepts in a manner and an approach that they've never been conveyed before.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know, like when I was doing my research and kind of going over everything, one of the things that stood out to me that really intrigued me is that when you spoke about your personal vision or your desire to create those situational leaders who create impact by understanding their unique purpose. And I think when people understand their niche or their purpose, I think that's when they get able to achieve their fullest potential to be able to help people at a even higher clip than they will normally do. So you've been involved in a lot of, and you're currently involved in a lot of things, from being involved with the Literacy Council on both sides of both counties, both sides of Texarkana, Arkansas, and Texarkana, Texas. You're involved in Leadership Texarkana. You're an assistant minister at your church. So you're doing a lot of things. And then I know when I was here back in 21, I came home and I noticed that you were actually a 2021 mayoral candidate. And your campaign was something that drew me to you. And I noticed that when I did my research, a lot of things that you talk about, you were able to tie that into your campaign. So how did you go about weaving that vision into your overall campaign?
So, I want, and thank you so much for the question. I served on city council for about 5 years, 2012 to 2017. And one of the things that I learned, serving as a city councilman, number one, is that I absolutely, I know a lot of people say that, being a city councilman and, kind of working for a municipality is a thankless job. But I think you have to be internally motivated, to do, the work where you're not, monetarily compensated or remunerated for the work. And you're not wanting, or you're not addicted to, the applause of people, the accommodations from people. You actually have to do it because you actually love it. And so one of the things I really loved, being involved in city government, being involved in, making decisions regarding the progression, the improvement of the city. But then I also, and probably more importantly, I loved interacting with people, love meeting people from different backgrounds, love meeting, different people, with different social economic statuses, and really hearing, what they wanted to see in their community, what they wanted to happen in their community, what deficiencies, they feel that, that we had that we can actually improve upon. What were some of those things that we were doing really well that we can even do better? Some of the things that we were doing that maybe the citizens wanted us to stop, whatever the case may be. It just gave me an opportunity to really engage, develop, these visceral, relationships, with citizens. And so whenever I decided to run for mayor, I wanted to run for mayor to be a voice for the citizens. I know if you're a citizen and if you have an issue, and if it's more than just, a pothole or a drainage issue, whatever the case may be, if it's pertaining to an ordinance, if it's pertaining to, the trajectory of the city, whatever it is, there may be some citizens, or there may have been some citizens at the time, that may have been unsure and unaware of how to convey their concerns and their grievances. And so I actually wanted to be that catalyst so I can actually use my position as mayor, if I was successful, to collaborate through strategic doing, with city council members so we can see about meeting the needs of citizens. So community revitalization, leadership, really wanted to focus on the youth, giving the youth, something that was healthy and that was robust and that was profitable, for them to do, mentor training, having access
Right.
to holders and leaders in the community, giving them a positive outlet, to mitigate, criminality, to focus on education, to provide them with, tools and resources so they can develop not only as young men and women, but hopefully evolve into and to grow into, successful citizens. So, being, immersed in city government, meeting some very interesting, very brilliant people. And one of the things I do want to share is
Okay.
that the citizens in this community are very passionate about the community. They're very brilliant, very smart. Whether they have degrees or not, that wasn't indicative of their level of articulation, their level of brilliance, their wherewithal, knowing exactly what they wanted, being able to articulate that in a very interpretable, a very clear and unambiguous fashion. And they're very candid, they're very unafraid. They're not, tenuous, they're not weak, they're not timid. And these were citizens that wanted someone to ask what they wanted to see, in their city. And there were also citizens that wanted to contribute, that wanted to be involved, that wanted to be a part of, this evolution and the growth. And so being exposed, to that passion and to that commitment, fidelity, and devotion, that's what motivated me. Number one, to run for mayor, and then number two, it actually gave me an instrumentality that I can actually weave all of those concerns in concise, measurable, very clear objectives that I wanted to accomplish if I were to be successful as mayor.
Yes, I understand like the passion that I saw from the citizens just by your campaign and the drive to, even though we were not successful on that last try, the how much emphasis and the work they put into trying to get you into that seat, because I feel like people saw you as a person that could shift the change or put things in place where we can start generating more success in the community. I know that passion still lives within you now, just by based on what I see with you being engaged with programs like the Scholars and We Are Washington and things of that nature. So is that motivation still there if that opportunity roll back around again in a few years?
Yeah, you know what? I'm not definitively sure. At this
Hmm.
moment, of course, just like with any endeavor, whenever you have a groundswell of support, and whenever the outcome is not what others and even myself at that time, had expected. Of course, there have been people over the years, even here as
Hmm.
of way, that have asked me, if I'm still going to run, and if so, then they have. I have their unequivocal support, so I haven't definitively made that decision yet.
Okay. Well, you got our support if you do make the decision or whatever you decide to do. Um, and I know one of the things that I'm really passionate about and I had the opportunity to kind of experience is the word of Rotary. So I know that has been something that's been in your life as well. So as a participant of Rotary, actually the actual president-elect of the Wilbur Smith Rotary Club, talk to us about Rotary and how those principles of Rotary have impacted the trajectory of your career and others connected to this organization.
So it's interesting. Whenever I got involved in Rotary about 3 years ago, I was very naive, to the cause, to the mission, to the ultimate objective, of Rotary. And I got involved because, a former dean of mine, who I consider, a mentor of mine, asked me to get involved. And so because of his credibility, got involved, didn't really understand the depth to which Rotary was not only involved in the local community, regional communities, national communities, but then the tentacles that actually reached, international. And so as I continue to, become more involved, in Rotary, was asked to be president-elect. And so we have to attend all of the president-elects across all of the districts, not only in the state of Texas, but beyond. We all attend a kind of like a weekend long seminar, and it's called the PETS conference. So it's President-elect Training Seminar, and it was there. And actually, I went this past February, and so it was there that I was fully enlightened. I was immersed and enthralled in all things that were Rotary. And of course, you actually hear, the topical things, but if you go to meetings, that one of the missions of Rotary is to, ultimately end polio. Definitely. I think Rotary International has been assistive in reducing the cases of polio, which is a paralyzing condition that's typically contaminated through or contracted through contaminated water by 99.9%. And so whenever you think about the valiant and the tireless effort, that one organization has dedicated time and equity and resources to eliminating a pandemic, then that's commendable within itself. But then whenever you see that the opportunities and the moments that you actually have to make those Rotary connections, those visual, those emotional connections with people, that's also aligned with my mission and vision personally, and that's to transform lives. Use those spaces, maximize and optimize those moments, to the trajectory and change the momentum and the outlook of someone's life. And so whenever you think about even the causes for Rotary, so you have this promoting peace, you're fighting diseases, you're providing clean water, you're supporting education, which of course is in my wheelhouse, saving, mothers and children. So just the vulnerability there, that provokes this emotion, be altruistic, be a good Samaritan. When you talk about growing local communities, right? And so I know before we began, we were talking about, this palpable economic surge, just here in Texarkana. So whenever you think about that amplified exponentially, not only locally, regionally, not only statewide, nationally, but internationally, that's when you talk about protecting the community, protecting the environment, in different communities and what all that entails. And then also disaster relief, disaster response, responding to someone else's plight, putting yourself in that situation. If you're an empathetic person or if you have an empath personality, then that will actually appeal, to that interest and to that desire and to that inclination. So whenever you look at those causes, and since a lot of those causes are aligned with who I am just naturally and innately, and then what I have composed as a personal mission vision, it just makes me really want to get involved, really be tied and tethered more closely, to the mission of Rotary, again, to eliminate polio, but then instrumentally, focus on, those critical areas, where we can definitely make an impact.
Okay. Have you already started your reign as the president, or are you waiting to just move into the position?
I'm actually waiting to move into the position, so I won't officially become president until July of this
Okay. Okay, that's great, man. I know again, just having the impact that Rotary has in the community and the educational system, and to serve all those different populations, it's a really valuable program. Just looking back at everything from your path to become the president elect, going to the different conferences, interacting with all those other president elects. Do you have any memorable moment or activity which stands out to you while you were on your course to getting prepared to move into that role?
So there's a gentleman, and there may be an opportunity, and not putting in a plug for him, but he just want to give credit, to his influence. And of course, I have a ton of mentors. I know you had mentioned, community involvement, earlier, and so the two ladies, and I want to make sure that I acknowledge them, for actually three, for them pouring into me and then providing me with some demarcation, some boundaries in terms of how to get involved, but then how to limit myself from becoming overly involved, to the point where I become ineffective at a certain point. And that's Miss Joanne Rice, Miss Diane Martin, and Dr. Taretha Harper. So it was those three individuals, who had an instrumental impact on me getting involved into the community. And, they contributed, to my evolution to this point. But there's another gentleman, and his name is Antonio Williams. So he's the president
Mhm.
for Village Communities of Texarkana, Texas, and he formerly served, as president for Will Smith Rotary. And just seeing his enthusiasm, just seeing his grit and his drive and his tenacity, and being unapologetic in his role as president, being very formidable, having a presence, was commanding in his speech. But then he also knew how to balance, that command and that authority with delicacy, with elegance, and with diplomacy and civility. And also just to be able to see him, kind of dually, balance, those attributes, right? Being, what John Maxwell calls being highly visionary, but then simultaneously being highly practical, right? So being able to
Mhm.
live abstract, being able to mentally time travel, but then simultaneously you living in a reality where transcendentally and pragmatically you accept situations for what they are and you adjust accordingly. So similar to going back to any type of leadership taxonomy, situational leadership, having the leadership intelligence or the LQ to be able to adapt and pivot at the right time, and adapt effectively and accordingly. So actually seeing his presidency, gave me motivation whenever I was asked to be president to go to PETS with an open mind because, when you go there were about, and this was just in the state of Texas, so there were different districts in Texas who had president elects. You actually had some presidents that were there, but it mainly focused on president elects. And it was probably 600 plus attendees, at this conference. And just going there just to listen and be a sponge and just absorb all of the creativity, all of the ingenuity, all of the ideas, the philosophy behind why they do what they do, why certain and how certain chapters are, just continually and perpetually successful gave me, this renewed and just kind of restored, vigor and fervor for not only serving more effectively in my current role as president-elect, but then using strategic doing to identify, the right people, to put them in the right places at the right time, so we can be the best Rotary Club that we can be during my tenure as president. So my Rotary moment, or that person that had the greatest impact on me in terms of me being even more excited about this position, would be Antonio Williams.
Yes, I know Brother Williams. I know Miss Rice. Uh, Good people, really good people.
Absolutely.
You'll move, yeah, you'll move into your position in July. Um, and anytime you move into a new position, it's always more about successes, and often more times than not, is also there's equal or greater challenges. As you move into your presidency, what do you feel would be some of the most challenging, or rather some of the most gratifying things you're going to experience as you adjust into that role as president?
Well, I think one of the things that I definitely want to focus on is making sure that we maintain the legacy of Rotary, and at a micro level, to contribute to the overall mission of eradicating polio. But then also ensuring that we're developing programs that focus on, the needs of Texarkana, Bowie County, Miller County, and beyond, whatever those programs are. Typically here, it may be supporting education, with our 4 ISDs, more prominent ISDs, and then our neighboring ISDs. And now we have 3 higher ed institutions: A&M Texarkana, Texarkana College, which has a phenomenal and impressive storied history here in the area, and also University of Arkansas, Hope Texarkana, under the leadership of Dr. Christine Holt, Texarkana College, Dr. J. Smith, the new president, Dr. Ross Alexander. So finding ways that we can actually partner with those entities to support education, and then also growing the local community. Finding ways that actually appeal to our members to get them involved in those particular causes, that are in line with the goals of Rotary, and then also finding ways that we can respond to different types and different degrees of disaster, whatever that is. And so identifying, interests among the group, and soliciting not input from them, so they can tell us what they want their organization to look like. A theme that I have for my presidency is that we are one. And it's interesting because whenever you look at the vision statement of Rotary, it actually ends with the individual, but then it actually starts with community. And so if we're able to do a self-evaluation, to really assess and acknowledge and diagnose why we're members of Rotary, then that'll give us, I think, a renewed purpose and a renewed focus of why we're contributing monetarily to be members of this organization. What internally or intrinsically is motivating us to be a part of the organization, to be involved, to lend our talents, to lend our expertise, to lend equity. And then finding different areas that we can connect that drive and that motivation and desire to. Another thing that I want to do is that I want us to increase membership. My membership, has been almost toward 100, but due to COVID, there's been a slight decline. But I don't want to continue to blame or attribute or ascribe a decrease in membership to COVID, because that was back in, 2019, 2020, 2021-ish. 2021 coming out of COVID, where we were then able to be a little bit more interactive and engaging, and so each member intentionally identifying members from their sphere who are just like them, that they know who want to be involved, that they know that they see others above self, that they see others more important than them. They want to be good Samaritans. They want to give back. They want to be selfless. Find areas that they have a love for, that they have an affinity for, and then allow them to contribute effectively to those areas. So coming up in July, that's what I want to focus on. We're steadily focusing on inviting people to our meetings, seeing if they want to get involved, seeing if there's something that they want to be a part of. And we need to find ways that once they're there, we actually retain them, get them involved, get them connected to things that they have a love for and that they're intrinsically motivated to do.
Yes, sir. Having been a member of Rotary when I resided in Arkadelphia, Arkansas, I understand the unique role that this organization plays. I understand the hard work and dedication of the people that show up. I think oftentimes, if you are just on the outside looking in and you don't have a real perception of what Rotary is, you can kind of like, what is that? What is that? And I know when I first got involved, someone invited me to the meeting. And then I got involved. I met some really great people, but I also got to see what was going on in the community. And that's what intrigued me about Rotary the most, were people that are genuinely care about one another, no matter if they're black, white, Hispanic, or whatever. They all had a central focus, and that was to, like you said, eradicate the issue with polio, be able to create a better opportunity for our students and our families through education, and be able to develop our communities to the best possibility. So one thing that I wanted to know, if you were encouraging someone to join, I know you talked about letting people know about Rotary, getting them involved, and getting them in the right situation so they can serve and be good servant leaders, so our communities and families can thrive. So if you were encouraging someone to join the Wilbur Smith Rotary Club or Rotary in general, what would you tell them is the value of being in that membership?
They get an opportunity to connect their heart to humanity. And if a prospective member is someone that's like myself, and I always say that I love people, I love humans, and if you are truly a servant leader and you want to give back, and you're looking for a way and a catalyst by which to do that, and you want to make a tremendous and long-lasting, memorable impact on the lives of people that are in desperate need of your assistance, of your intelligence, of your kindness and benevolence, this is the organization for you. It's more than just about a membership, and obviously the membership is very nominal, so it's not cost absorbent. It's not astronomical. It's a relatively nominal fee, but for that you get an opportunity to be exposed and be introduced to what's going on, which is the impetus of this podcast. You get to meet other like-minded individuals, that have a love for humanity similar to yourself, and then you're able to suggest ideas, things that we can be doing relative to the causes of Rotary. So if it's addressing a socioeconomic problem, with those that may be impoverished, those that may be disenfranchised, and so there may be a certain sect or subsect of a community that greatly appeals to you, that pulls on your heartstrings. If that's the case, you have the opportunity to individually and corporately contribute to what you want an organization that you want to be a part of to look like. So I would say again, if you want to connect your heart to humanity, this is definitely the organization.
Yes, sir. This has been a wonderful conversation. I know I'm not going to take too much more of your time, but I want to give you one last question, because I think your position in the community, your standpoint of being an A&M and growing up in this area. So, as a leader, what is your vision for the future of Texarkana? You're going into your presidency in July. 10 years, 5 to 10 years from now, what would you like Texarkana to look like? Your vision for that?
It would be phenomenal if everyone was involved in their respective community, to impact the next person that they came in contact with. If we had more entrepreneurs, that wanted to start businesses, that maybe have businesses, and believe that they are or may be, relatively successful, but can be more successful, to seek resources, to seek mentorship, to find ways that they can financially benefit, that they can economically benefit, through services, products, or modes of operation. They can provide, products and services, to those that are in need of those products and services. Finding, niches and deficits, in the market so they can address, those inadequacies. But again, finding a way that everyone can be communal, finding a way that everyone can be involved, getting involved in nonprofit organizations. Of course, I'm a little bit biased and have a partiality, toward nonprofit organizations, because I've been involved in so many, currently involved in so many, even extending, their gifts and their talents, beyond this area, so they can, illuminate, the talent that comes out of Texarkana. I know a lot of what I hear, from people in various circles. They'll say, "Man, there's a lot of talented people in Texarkana," and so if those that are currently talented are emerging, from, this clandestine covert space, just imagine how many other people are just as, if not more talented, that haven't been encouraged,
Hmm.
step beyond the veil, step beyond the curtain, and actually showcase, what you can do, demonstrate, exemplify exactly what you can do, and really take that to the next level. So I see us being more synergistic. I see us being more collaborative. I see us being more, um, more cohesive. I know with the development of downtown, I know that's bringing about a more renewed solidarity, because now you actually have economic development that's taking place on both ends of the city, north and south. With development taking place there in the middle too. And people are excited. Any type of novelty, any type of growth, any type of newness, people are going to gravitate to. So hopefully, over the years, under the leadership of both city managers and the mayor, we actually start to see more solidarity, more community, more people that are coming together. I know you had actually mentioned that you're going to have, and Hispanic representatives on the podcast, later, seeing that community, who I think is very, very prolific, very successful, respectively, seeing that community more involved, so we can actually see, more of an emphasis on diversity, and so we recognize, individual differences, individual talents, individual backgrounds, and then creating spaces where that uniqueness and that authenticity is accepted without retaliation. But then also, creating spaces where everyone is involved, everyone is included, everyone feels welcome, everyone feels loved. And I think with that, you're going to see more people reach their potential. You're going to see more people that are going to strive for these continual cycles of potentiality, learning more about themselves, discovering more about themselves, wanting to elevate to, unfamiliar territory, but then curious and intrigued by the discovery and the unknown. So again, just more solidarity, more collaboration is what I want to see.
Yes, sir. This has been a wonderful conversation tonight. I knew it would be just by reading your background and
Sure.
kind of hearing from people about you, and just by following you, I knew it would be. Again, I'd like to thank you for agreeing to come on to the show, talking with people about everything that's going on from Rotary to everything that you do. I think it's a learning point for everyone, like I said, that don't know who you are and the things that you're doing, and for the people that do know who you are, so they can be able to tap into you a little bit more. I think you're a great resource for our community, and I really appreciate you for coming on. As you mentioned, I want everyone to know tomorrow we're going to be doing another special episode where we're going to be talking to the creators and the planners for Cinco de Texarkana. That's going to be coming up in the first weekend of May. So they're going to be coming on to talk about the actual event. If you're familiar with San Antonio and the Fiesta, trying to look at that as a mini version of that, so we can celebrate the many contributions that the Hispanic and the Mexican American population are contributing, not only to our community, but to our country as well. So they're going to be on to talk about that event, from the food vendors to the day altogether. So that's a celebration that we all celebrate, but now we have an umbrella to celebrate that in Texarkana. So join us tomorrow. I think it's going to be a really intriguing conversation like we had tonight with Dr. Matthews. And as always, like I always tell you, TXK, what's your state of mind?